It is serious to be a disciple, a follower of Jesus. As we proclaim this gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ this weekend, we have a very stern and serious message from the evangelist Luke. And I don't know about you, but when I read it and heard it for the first time in preparation for this weekend, I was wondering, what was the good news? Certainly very stern and severe language, almost exaggerated by Jesus. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brother and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. There's a kind of seriousness that we need to have to be a disciple of Jesus. Certainly one of the ways that we could approach this particular verse of today's gospel would be from an historical perspective. We know that near the end of the first century, as Luke is writing his gospel, that oftentimes there was division in households about what they should do and to whom they should believe. People that were in a Jewish household, some spouses became a follower of Jesus and others did not. Some parents wanted to follow Jesus, but their kids might have wanted to remain Jewish. If they were in Greek and Roman territory, sometimes people wanted to continue their pagan worship and worshiping the false gods, and others wanted to follow Jesus. So there was a lot of tension, a lot of division among households in the early church about who they should follow, who should they believe in. So we have this very severe saying of Jesus. And I know that it's hard for us to perhaps understand that. And it's not that Jesus wants us to hate anyone, obviously, but Luke is saying, but we need to take a stand sometimes, even in our own families. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. And what does it mean to bear our own cross in following Jesus, in discipleship? And I don't think that we have to think very hard or very long to know that sometimes it's hard to be a Christian. It's hard to forgive. It's hard to turn the other cheek. It's hard to live a life of a disciple who tells us that we need to feed the poor and the hungry and clothe the naked, those corporal works of mercy that Jesus tells us about. It's not always easy to put others ahead of ourselves. There is a cost to discipleship, and it's serious work. It takes serious effort on our part. And then Jesus uses two examples that I think are very easy for us to understand. For example, like building this church. It would be silly for us to have started it and not be able to put a roof on it. We know that once we start on a path, we have to consider all the costs that it takes to finish a project, whether it's big or small. And Luke is saying to us that Christianity, living our faith of discipleship, is like that. Certainly one of the things that changed from the first few centuries of church life to the 4th century is infant baptism. St. Augustine and his theological writing promoted children being baptized, but that didn't start until the 4th century. For the most part, adults were baptized. So when one was considering the cost of discipleship, it was an adult decision. Now, there were certainly children baptized, but it was mostly in families that took place in. So what Jesus is asking us to consider is making that choice. Are we willing to do those things? Are we willing to count the costs of following? It's not always easy to tell the truth, but we have to. We must, because we're followers of Jesus. What is the cost of discipleship? What is the cost of being a good steward? And then he uses this example again, which is in the news today, about going to war or not. The Holy Father asked us yesterday to take time to pray for peace. Peace in Syria, peace in the world. And what a difficult decision it is for our president and our legislature, the people who are responsible to hear our voice, to know what to do, counting the cost. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to defend the lives of innocent people who are killed by their own government or not? Are we ready to take that risk, that chance? And no matter where we fall politically, we know how hard it is to decide. These are difficult decisions, and Luke is saying to us in Jesus' words that these kinds of decisions are part of our discipleship. We need to understand that it's not always going to be easy. It's not easy to be a follower of Christ. And then this last saying, in the same way, any of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciples. Like, what does that mean? I think renouncing our possessions isn't necessarily getting rid of them all, because we need things, obviously. We need to have roof overhead and food and dishes and plates and all transportation, cars and bikes. We need to have all those things, but renouncing them might mean that we place the proper importance on them, that our human relationships and our human relationships that point to relationship with God have to be the most important things in our lives. And that's serious. It's not always easy. Our culture keeps telling us over and over again, if we get that thing, what? We'll be happy, or happier than we are right now without it. You know, I get up early every morning and, there's nothing on TV at 6 o'clock in the morning on Sundays, except what? Infomercials. I almost bought a new vacuum cleaner this morning, It's just, my life is going to be so much better if I have that thing. We must renounce all of our possessions or we cannot be a disciple. These things are serious and they're complicated. And I know that we could probably spend many, many weeks talking about just this particular passage in Luke's gospel. But as we continue through these gospels about our discipleship, about prayer, and about who we are as followers of Jesus in this section of Luke's gospel, they do demand of us some very serious considerations. What are we willing to do to pick up our cross and follow him? And perhaps our cross is that there's a part of our heart that's really hard and stony. There's somebody that we're supposed to forgive, but we can't. Maybe that's the cross we need to pick up and forgive. Maybe we need to ask somebody for forgiveness. Maybe that's our cross. Maybe we need to get the courage up and ask somebody that we know doesn't go to church anymore and ask them to come with us. Put aside our embarrassment about talking about our faith and ask, invite. You probably have some of your own thoughts about, what would it be for you to consider following Jesus more closely? Do we need to spend more time in prayer? Do we need to do a corporal work of mercy? Do we need to do something to serve the poor? What might it be so that we can pick up our cross and follow Jesus, understanding that being a disciple costs us something? It's not easy living a life orientated toward others, where we put aside what we want for the greater good. So as we come here today, the gospel gives us much to think and pray about. What is the cross that we need to pick up to follow Jesus? Because being his disciple is serious work. It takes our dedication each and every day. But following Jesus is truly the way to eternal life.